Alright, hey guys, welcome to Unacademy and this live session. I hope I'm audible and visible to all of you here. Am I audible and visible to everybody here? Alright, so now let's begin with the discussion here. So as you would already be aware about, so we have been covering current affairs in this series over here, right? So we have been taking up current affairs every day. So now talking about that aspect here, like when we speak about what all things we have been covering, so we have covered the current affairs from the months of January, February, and March. Right, so we have covered the current affairs from January, February, and March, and today we'll go on with the current affairs from the month of April. Right, so today we'll be discussing the various current affairs from the month of April. Right, so let's just wait a few more people join in and then we'll go on with the discussion. All right, so coming back to the discussion now, right? People are slowly joining in. So as and when they join in, they can just put in a message in the comment section so as to I know that you guys are here and I am audible and visible to all of you all, right? Now coming about this, so now we have to begin with the current affairs from the month of April. So now the lockdown was in force, so nothing very big or substantial will take place. Small things will definitely be doing the rounds though. So first of all, we speak about our green bonds. Now, what are green bonds if we are to speak about them? So the State Bank of India has listed green bonds worth rupees $100 million on India's INX's global exchange market platform, right? So that is where they have, laid down all of these things. Now, what are green bonds? Green bonds are debt instruments, right, issued by financial, non-financial or public entities where the proceeds are earmarked, right? The proceeds are earmarked for use towards financing green projects, right? So it is used towards financing what? Financing various green projects for us here, right? So that is about it. Now, as per official green bonds requirement for Indian issuers published in the year 2016 by the SEBI, that is Securities Exchange Board of India, debt security shall be considered as green or green debt securities, right? So that is with respect to it over here. I'll give you guys a minute to go through the slides. So quickly read through everything that has been given over here and ask me in case you have any doubts with respect to anything covered here. Right? कोई doubt है so ask me right away over here. Alright guys, so let's continue now. I hope it is clear to everyone. Since nobody asked a question, that means it's clear to everybody. Now going on further, talking about the next issue over here, talking about the various aspects related to your, the funds and how all those things are going to function or work over here. So when we speak about how the funds are going to take place here, how that is going to work out for everybody over here. So speaking of that issue here, what is going to happen? Funds raised are to be utilized for assets, right? Falling under any of the five broad categories, right? So that is about it. So that is how it's going to be functioning or working here. Then clean transport, like clean transportation, that means then sustainable water management, right? That also needs to be done done with over here, right? Then what else? Sustainable water management, right? Followed by your climate change adaptation, right? Adaptation that is going to be there. Furthermore, talking about the next issue, that is energy efficient buildings, that is efficient and green buildings. Now this is important. आप लोग ने green buildings का concept पहले भी सुना होगा. So when we speak of or whenever we talk about the green buildings issue, green buildings का मतलब क्या है? Green buildings basically are associated or related to aspects. Hi Garima, welcome to the session. तो ग्रीन बिल्डिंग्स का बेसिक रिलेशनशिप किस चीज़ के साथ होता है? फॉर एग्जाम्पल, अगर आप अपनी एक ईस्ट टू वेस्ट फेसिंग बिल्डिंग बनाओगे, यू विल हैव लाइट, abundance of light in the house, right? Because of natural light that is going to be there, right? Then all these issues wherein you'll have proper ventilation and all those things. So जितनी भी ये buildings बनती हैं, they will be energy efficient first of all. They will also be very instrumental in saving a lot of extra energy that would have otherwise been wasted. अगर आप एक sunny corner में कोई building बनाओगे, so obviously it will have abundant of lighting, right? Which will not be an issue. वहाँ पर artificially light करने की ज़रूरत नहीं पड़ेगी इतनी. It will have abundant lighting, right? So that is there. Then we speak about the climate change adaptation. So what is so important with respect to climate change adaptation? That is as and when the various changes in climate are going to take place. So that also needs to be talked about here, right? Then sustainable waste management, that is recycling the waste to energy, etc., right? So that aspect is important. Then we speak of your sustainable land use, that is including sustainable forestry and agriculture, afforestation, etc., right? Biodiversity conservation will also be very important over here, right? So all these are the various aspects. इसमें से सबसे important क्या है? Energy efficiency with respect to efficient and green buildings. Talk about painting them white so as to reflect maximum amount of heat ताकि building heat up ना हो. Making sure that abundant windows and ventilation is there so as to ensure proper lighting and not having the need for or not having the need to turn on the lights and all those things at all points of time, right? So that is there. Now going on further, talking about the next aspect here, talking about the fact wherein the Supreme Court had relaxed the BS4 rollout deadline. Now I hope you guys are aware of the fact that the Supreme Court had talked about rolling out BS6 norms this year. So Bharat stage norms hai with respect to the amount of sulfur in the petrol, right? So this year India had to shift to the BS6 vehicles, right? So India had to be shifting to the Bharat stage 6 vehicles this year. So now the Supreme Court extended the 31st March 2020 deadline for sale and registration of BS4 emissions norm compliant vehicles. The first stage of mass emission norms came into force for petrol vehicles in the year 1991 and in 1992 for diesel vehicles, right? In 2000, passenger cars and, commercial vehicles were met like Euro 1 equivalent 2000 norms. Right, by 2001, Bharat Stage 2 norms were there, which were based upon your Euro 2 norms, which were brought into force, right? When we speak about the next thing, that is rather when we speak about the Bharat stage norms for that matter, so Bharat stage norms are the standards that have been set or have been put forth by the Central Pollution Control Board, that is CPCB, under the Ministry of Environment and Forests and Climate Change, to regulate the output of air pollutants, right, from internal combustion engines including the motor vehicles, right? तो जितना वो किस तरह का fuel use करेंगे, किस तरह के combustions होंगे, that is going to in a way determine the same. Then the exhaust gases now covered under the norms are carbon monoxide, hydrogen, ऑक्साइड्स ऑफ नाइट्रोजन एंड ऑल्सो वेरियस काइंड्स ऑफ पार्टिकुलेट मैटर। तो आपने देखा होगा जहाँ पर भी आपके फॉसिल फ्यूल्स इन टर्म्स ऑफ योर पेट्रोल एंड एनी अदर थिंग दैट इज बर्न्ड, इट डज रिलीज अ लॉट ऑफ various gases and exhausts from the same. Also, the norms here are based upon the basal norms, that is according to the European standards, right? Is this clear to everyone? Has everybody followed this much? All right, so since this is slightly technical, I'll give you guys 1 minute to quickly go through this slide. In case you have any issues or anything you want to ask me right over here, you can let me know. So quickly go through the slide. In case of any doubts or issues, ask me the same. All right, so I hope that you guys have gone through this. So, just a little brief with respect to this. So, guys, the quantity of sulfur in a fuel mostly determines as to what kind of pollutants are going to be like, or what kind of pollution is going to take place, right? जितना सल्फर कंटेंट फ्यूल्स का ज़्यादा होता है उतना ज़्यादा पोल्यूशन होता है, राइट? सो व्हेन वी आर टॉकिंग अबाउट द भारत स्टेज नॉर्म्स एंड शिफ्टिंग फ्रॉम वन पर्टिकुलर स्टैंडर्ड टू अनदर, the change that we are going to incorporate here is going to be what is going to be with respect to various issues or various aspects related to the quantum of pollutants that are going to come out, right? So obviously jab aapne like you're using fuels which are not as polluting, so the quantum of pollutants which is going to be coming out is also going to come down, right? So that is about it, right? So that is an important aspect to it over here, right? Now, going on further, coming on to the next aspect here, speaking of what? Speaking of the next thing here, which is your, coming on to the next aspect that कैसे कैसे norms shift हुए हैं. So initially India began with Bharat stage 2, 3, all those things. So ultimately what was decided that we need to amp up the same. So हमने Bharat stage 4 norms, right? So Bharat stage 4 norms के साथ साथ में हमने क्या किया, भारत स्टेज 4 नॉर्म्स के बाद वी डायरेक्टली शिफ्टेड टू भारत स्टेज 6 नॉर्म्स, राइट? सो इंडिया डज नॉट हैव और इंडिया डिड नॉट हैव एनी भारत स्टेज like what do we say, Bharat stage 5 norms that were adopted. So directly क्या हुआ, Bharat stage 4 से सीधे we transition to Bharat stage 5, right? So that is what happened over here. So please keep this in mind and remember the same. All right. Now going on further, coming to the next aspect here, when we speak of the Bharat stage norms, one pollutant that is kept in mind, or one pollutant that has to be properly kept in mind before anything is done, is the fact that you have to make sure that you take into account as to what kind or what amount of sulfur fuel is going to go, or sulfur, not fuel but sulfur content in the fuel, and the kind of emissions, like the sulfur emissions that are going to be there, right? So that is about it. So please make sure that you remember the same, right? So it is very very important here. So please remember the same. Now going on further, talking about the next aspect here, when we speak about why was there a relaxation required. So obviously everybody knows that this year there was a massive outbreak, right? And you had to the various rollouts that had to be taken up were basically uh, you know uh, basically like because of the lockdown and all those issues and restrictions, it was not possible to roll out all the norms, right? So Bharat stage 6 norms को roll out करके उसका compliance ensure करना would have been very difficult. So that is why, and that is how initially it was like decided कि करना है. But after the lockdown and all those things, there was a deferment that was brought about here. So it was slightly deferred because obviously जब lockdown है ये सब चीजें हो रही है, so it's not possible to ensure that Bharat stage 6 compliant norms will be there and all those things. So that is not pretty much what is possible here, right? So that is about it. So make sure you guys remember this much, right? Is this clear to everyone? Have you guys followed the same? Is this clear? Have you understood the same? कितना समझ में आया? Hi Vikas, good afternoon. So now going on further, coming on to the next aspect of the discussion. So what are the major standards under BS6, right? तो जो हम लोग बात कर रहे हैं, so standards हैं क्या and how is it going to follow suit? Right, so please remember when we speak of it, nitrogen oxide levels for BS6 grade diesel engines and petrol engines will be brought down by about 70% and 25% respectively, right? BS6 also reduces the particulate material or particulate matter limit by 80% from BS4 for diesel vehicles and also introduces particulate matter limit for petrol vehicles, right? Going further, in addition to the emission standards for new vehicles, the regulations provide specifications for reference and commercial fuels, right? So that is about it. Please note, very important, that the sulfur traces in BS6 fuel is 5 times lower. That is 10 parts per million as compared to sulfur traces in BS4 fuel, that is 50 parts per million, which is a reduction of about 80%, right? Then going on further, diesel particulate filter, that is DPF, and selective catalytic reduction, that is SCR, are being introduced with the rollout of BS6 norms, which were not a part of the BS4, right? So these are the differences that have come up this time round, right? And real driving emission, that is RDE, will be introduced in India for the first time with the implementation of the Bharat Stage 6 emission norms, right? So that is about it. What is it going to do? यहाँ कैसे work करेगा वो? It is going to measure the vehicle's emission in real time conditions against lab conditions, right? Onboard diagnostics has been made mandatory for all vehicles, which will give the vehicle owner or repair technician access to the status of various vehicle subsystems, right? So that is what is going to happen in this case here, right? So that is what is going to be done over here, right? So that is about it. Now going on further, coming on to the next aspect here, let's talk about SAFAR. Before which I'll give you guys 1 minute to quickly go through this slide, read it and let me know in case any points is or are not clear. Do you guys have any doubts? All right, so I guess not. So let's continue. Now coming to the discussion with respect to SAFAR. Now, what is SAFAR? So, it is a center-run system for air quality and weather forecasting and research. That is SAFAR for us. The measures against COVID-19 have led to a drop, that is a reduction in PM 2.5, fine particulate pollutant, right? That is there. Good afternoon, Muskan. To a great extent in major cities like Delhi and Pune. With a nationwide lockdown in place, over 90 cities, including Delhi, have recorded minimum air pollution in the last few days. The level of nitrogen oxide pollution, mainly caused due to a high motor vehicle traffic, has also reduced. The nitrogen oxide pollution can increase the risk of respiratory conditions as well, right? So these are the various aspects related to SAFAR over here, right? So I'll repeat it again, very important. क्या है SAFAR? SAFAR is basically the system for air quality and weather forecasting and research, right? So that is SAFAR. Now, the measures, when we speak of it against COVID-19, have led to a drop in PM 2.5. Obviously, why will that have happened? Because itne sara fuel emission burning, different factories, industries have been shut down. So that will definitely reduce the quantum of the pollutants that were released or that would have been even produced in the first place. So once the combustion and all these things will go down, once these activities are going to come down, that is definitely going to reflect in the kind of pollutants that are going to be there in the air, right? So that is how the quantum of pollution has temporarily or slightly come down over here, right? Going on further, nitrogen oxide pollutants or pollution can increase the risk of respiratory conditions. That is another important aspect here. Now, going on further, talking about the system of air quality and weather monitoring and research. So, when we speak about system of air quality and weather forecasting and research, that is SAFAR, what do we understand by that? It was indigenously developed by the Indian Tropical Institute of Tropical Meteorology in Pune, right? It is run by IMD, that is India Meteorological Department, right? The objective here is to provide real-time air quality index on a 24/7 basis with color coding along with a 72-hour advanced weather forecast, right? Another goal here is to issue health advisory to prepare citizens well in advance, right? So that is what it is doing over here. So let's go over it again. क्या हो रहा है? What is SAFAR exactly working with, or what is SAFAR exactly here? So it was indigenously developed by the ITM, that is Indian Institute of Tropical Meteorology, which is located in the state of not in the state of Maharashtra in Pune, right? It is run by IMD, that is like it's basically the major like regulation body here, that is going to be the Indian Met Department, that is India Meteorological Department. The objective purpose क्या है इसका is to provide a real time air quality index on 24/7 basis, right? 24/7 basis with a color coding along with a 72-hour advanced weather forecast. So this is what it is going to be like for the next 72 hours, that kind of a forecast. And another goal here is to issue health advisory to prepare citizens well in advance, right? So that is about it. Now, going on further, coming to a very important discussion, that is Petcoke. Now, if you have been reading your newspapers, well, you would have seen that a lot of articles regarding Petcoke have been surfacing of late, right? Right, this was exceptionally high when we speak about the month of April and May. उस time पर तो पेटकोक की बहुत ज़्यादा बात हुई थी. So the Director General of Foreign Trade under the Ministry of Commerce and Industry has laid out a procedure for the allocation of quota for import of calcined petcoke for aluminium industry and raw petcoke for CPC manufacturing industry for the financial year 2020-21. In 2017, Environment Pollution Control Authority had recommended that the distribution, sale and use of furnace oil and petcoke be strictly banned in National Capital Region because of the high sulfur content, right? Following this, Supreme Court has banned the use of petcoke in New Delhi and neighboring states of Haryana, UP and Rajasthan after air pollution level in the national capital reached various hazardous levels, right? So that is with respect to your petcoke here, right? Now petcoke चाहिए बहुत सारे कामों के लिए इंडियन इंडस्ट्री में, but because we do not have it abundantly in India, so what do we need to do? क्या करना ज़रूरी है? We'll have to import and all those things, right? So उसके लिए we used to import the same. So that is why we had to be importing the same for or in use for use in our country here, right? So that is with respect to petcoke over here. Now going on further, coming on to the next aspect with respect to it, और क्या important है यहाँ पर जो हो रहा है, that we need to keep in mind over here. So what is the next thing that we have to know about it over here? That is, in 2018, petcoke was banned for use as a fuel nationwide following the judgment in MC Mehta versus Union of India. आपने देखा होगा, आप लोग ने सुना भी होगा, MC Mehta has been one of the most, what do we say, active environmental lawyers in our country. He's been one of the most active lawyers in India for that matter, right? So he's been one of the most prominent and most active environmental lawyers in our country, and he had basically taken it up in the Supreme Court, wherein they had talked about the usage and the various repercussions and problems associated with pet coke, right? तो उसके साथ क्या क्या problems हैं जो associated हैं, right? So all those things were discussed at length, right? Now, in 2018, petcoke was banned for use as a fuel nationwide following the judgment in MC Mehta versus Union of India, right? So that is how it came into existence. Its import was though allowed for only cement, lime, clean, calcium carbide and gasification industries when used as a feedstock or in the manufacturing process, right? However, later the government permitted imports of a certain quantity of petcoke, which was used for a fuel purpose for anode making by aluminium industry. Before its import ban, India was the world's largest consumer of petcoke. Right? So before its ban, क्या था? India was the largest consumer of petcoke. क्यों? Because obviously हमारी इतनी सारी इंडस्ट्रीज में इतने सारे वेल फाउंड वेरिड यूजेस हैं उसके, तो ऑब्वियसली उसका जो यूज़ है वो वाइड स्प्रेड तो होना ही है, राइट? So that was an important aspect related to it over here, right? So that was about it. Now going on further, coming on to the next aspect here, right? So आपने देखा होगा presently the Supreme Court has fixated, right? So presently the Supreme Court has fixed, right, the import amount limit for raw petroleum coke at 0.5 metric tons per annum and calcined petroleum coke at 14 1.4 megatons per annum, right? So metric tons, actually not mega, metric tons per annum, right? So now a quota has been fixed in the country, right? So that is about it. Now why did we need to do this? Because of the various problems that were associated with the same, right? So that is why we had to take care of the same, and that is exactly how this thing happened over here, right? Is this clear to everyone? Have you guys understood the same? Is this clear? All right. Now going on further, coming on to the next aspect, talking what exactly is petcoke. So let's know a little bit more about petcoke. So petcoke जिसकी हम बात कर रहे हैं, जिसको हम लोग इतना criticize भी कर रहे हैं. So what exactly is petcoke here? Right. So when we speak about petcoke here, right? So what happened with respect to that? It is a byproduct, right? It is a byproduct, or that is a carbonaceous solid of the oil refinery, right? So it is a carbonaceous product of the oil refinery process, mainly that is the bottom barrel जो सबसे नीचे आता है, right? That is what we know by it, right? Going on further, talking about the next one, it is characterized as a high grade fuel, right? It is characterized as a high grade fuel, right? And going on further, what is so important over here, right? What is the another important aspect here? So what happens next is that like it has a very high calorific value, right? So since it has a very high like a calorific value, that is what is going to be very very important here, right? So that is how it's going to be very important over here, right? So that is a very important aspect here, right? नाउ क्योंकि उसकी इतनी ज़्यादा वैल्यू थी, इतना वो था, एंड हैविंग लो ऐश कंटेंट एंड लो वोलेटाइल मैटर बट हाई सल्फर कंटेंट, तो इशू क्या था यहाँ पर? हम पेट को क्यों यूज़ करते थे? बिकॉज एक तो इसकी हाई ग्रेड फ्यूल है, कैलोरिफिक वैल्यू बहुत ज़्यादा है, ऐश कंटेंट भी लो है. प्रॉब्लम या like you know why is there a situation that we do not want to, or why do we want to not encourage the usage of the same, is because it has a very high amount of sulfur emission that is going to be associated with it, right? So because of that we try to avoid the usage, right? What are the types? So in its raw form, it is also called as green coke or green petroleum coke or raw pet coke, right? It comes from several sources, all from the petroleum refinery industry. About 80% of the worldwide petroleum or pet coke production is fuel grade pet coke used for electricity generation and in cement kilns. Right? Calcined petcoke is obtained by processing of raw petcoke by calcining it in a rotary kiln that removes the residual volatile hydrocarbons. Calcined petcoke has the following industrial uses. पहले कहाँ कहाँ यूज होता है ये देखना जरूरी है. पहला कहाँ आया? Smelting of aluminium, and is the only commercially viable method to do so, right? So aluminium smelting में use होता है. Then production of titanium oxide, it's very well used over there. Then as partial replacement of coal as a feedstock in blast furnaces for making steel from iron ore, that is where it is used. Then brick and glass manufacturing में बहुत ज़्यादा use है. And lastly, production of ammonia and urea ammonium nitrate, right? So it is used in all those places as well, right? So these are various important issues related to your pet coke over here, right? So that is with respect to your pet coke here, right? Is this clear to everyone? Have you guys understood the same? बात समझ में आई है सबको? Is this clear? Understood? Yes or no? All right, now going on further, coming on to the next aspect, talking about environmental impacts of pet coke. Now, what are the various environmental impacts of pet coke? पहला तो है, it releases greenhouse gases, right? Muskan, I do not share PDFs on YouTube. You can just, like make notes from the slides if you want to. Right, now environmental impacts of pet coke. So basically, it releases greenhouse gases, though they are available on an Academy Plus platform, right? Now, talking about releases greenhouse gases, so due to its high carbon content, it releases up to 10% more carbon dioxide than normal coal, which makes petcoke a huge contributor of greenhouse gas, right? Now talking about the high sulfur content, उससे क्या होता है? Low grade pet coke जो होता है आपका, so it contains very huge amounts of sulfur which results in release of sulfur oxides during combustions. राइट और सल्फर लाइक सल्फर ऑक्साइड के साथ कई इश्यूज एसोसिएटेड हैं, जैसे कि इट इज़ अ नेजल इरिटेंट, फर्स्टली इट कॉजेज अबंडेंट अमाउंट ऑफ एयर पोल्यूशन एंड इवन एसिड रेन, राइट? सो सल्फर की वजह से एसिड रेन भी होती है. Then talking about the heavy metals, so petcoke also contains heavy metals such as nickel and vanadium, which can deteriorate quickly, which can deteriorate quality of environment and even cause toxicity. Particulate matter, for example, significant quantities of particulate matter from petcoke storage and handling operations lead to the inflammation in lungs, especially in urban or in industrial areas, right? That is also another thing that happens here. Then going on further, coming on to the next topic, that is uranium contamination. Now usually we believe that uranium कैसे contaminate कर सकता है किसी area को, कैसे आ सकता है. So we have places in India which have a very huge amount of uranium contamination, right? especially in water. Right, so water is one of the most widespread sources which has huge amounts of uranium contamination, right? So what has happened? A new study conducted by the University of Manchester, UK, and the Mahavir Cancer Institute and Research Center, Pulwa Sharif in Patna, has found uranium contaminating the groundwater in 10 districts of Bihar. Right, now this is going to be very, very problematic. Now, this is the first time that uranium content has been detected in groundwater in Bihar, right? Uranium concentrations are elevated mostly in the northwest southeast band along and to the east of Gandak River and running south of Ganga River towards Jharkhand, right? So this is how we've had huge amounts of your uranium contaminating various water sources in the country, right? Now, the maximum amount of uranium content was in Sapol, right, which was basically the district of Bihar, and 80 microgram of uranium per liter of water was found over there, right? So that was about it. Now, as we all already know that uranium is a radioactive metal, it is used for so many different purposes. So if it will definitely be contaminating the water sources, it is going to cause a lot of menace here, and it can even wreak havoc in the entire ecosystem, right? Obviously, uranium here, it's not like any other metal which is not poisonous, or it's not going to be, harming the various sources. So that is why it's going to be a real problem or a cause of concern here, right? Going on further, coming on to talking about the next one, that is the Arctic ozone hole, right? Before that, just read through this slide on uranium and let me know in case you guys have any doubts. I'll give you guys a minute. Have you read through? Also, guys, when we talk about India or when we speak about India's perspective here, so India has had a lot of issues with respect to water pollution, right? So India में बहुत सारे water sources जो हैं, they are usually contaminated with so many elements, be it your arsenic or mercury or anything like that. But they are normal metals. अगर उनका pollution होगा, that can still be done away with. Here it becomes even more problematic, or it becomes very difficult to deal with. Why? Because when we are talking about this area, what is going to happen? We are talking about issues with respect to, how this is going to be a radioactive element which is going to be causing so many issues out here, right? So that is how we need to take care or take cognizance of the same, and also realize how extensive pollution in this aspect is going to be so very problematic, right? So that is with respect to this one here, right? So that is about it. All right. So make sure you guys remember this, right? Now, going on further, there is another very important aspect that we need to take into account. What is that? What is that? Batao? So uranium can trigger a chain of events, right? Uranium can trigger a chain of events, and it can also lead to a lot of reactions, or maybe, it can lead to a lot of, what do we say, ill effects in the body, wherein a lot of, cancerous reactions can be triggered, right? So that is the aspect or the problem related to uranium poisoning, right? So that is about it. Is that clear? Have you guys understood the same? I hope you have. Now, going on further, let's go on to the next aspect of the discussion. So, let's talk about the next topic in line that we have for now. That is going to be what? That is going to be your Arctic ozone hole, right? Now, Arctic ozone holes have been in news ever since 1985. That is the Vienna Convention, right? That is when it was first, like it had first surfaced. So a rare hole that had opened up in the ozone layer has over the Arctic has got closed recently. Now this is how it has changed over here. So ever since the like the ozone holes formation, there were like there were so many things or so many different efforts that were basically taken up by the governments, and as a result of that the Arctic ozone hole has recently closed over the Arctic, and at the projected rates it will also going like it is also going to be healing, or it is gently healing like slowly and steadily even in the Antarctic region, right? Now, scientists using data from Copernicus Sentinel-5P satellite have noticed a strong reduction of the ozone concentrations over the Arctic, right? Also, an analysis of satellite observations show that ozone levels reached their lowest point on March 12th at 205 Dobson units. In comparison, the lowest March ozone value observed in the Arctic is usually around 240 Dobson units, right? What does that mean? That means that the quantum of your ozone hole is like, though it is basically something that is healing and all of that, but it is still something that needs to be taken proper care of, right? In case we do not take cognizance of the same now, it can be trending or treading both ways. Now, please note that the rare hole covered an area about 3 times the size of Greenland, right? While such low levels are rare, they are not unprecedented. Similar low ozone levels occurred in the upper atmosphere or stratosphere in the year 1997 and 2011 as well. Later on, the polar vortex split due to rising temperature with the onset of summer, allowing ozone-rich air into the Arctic led to healing of the ozone hole, right? So that is with respect to the Arctic ozone hole. I hope you know that why the ozone depletion is maximum when we see or when we talk about the case of your poles, because of the huge amount of high pressures there, leading to a lot of your polar vortices being formed, which are your polar cyclones, as a result of which abundantly the polar stratospheric clouds are going to be formed over here, and that is how it's all going to snowball into different effects out here, right? So that is what we normally and usually observe in all these areas over here, right? So that is with respect to the Arctic ozone hole, right? Going on further, talking about that, why did the Arctic ozone hole form this year? Like, क्यों हुआ ऐसा? So, a major reason for the 2020 Arctic ozone hole is that the polar vortex during winters was incredibly strong and persistent this year, right? The polar vortex is basically a large area of low pressure and cold air surrounding both of the Earth's poles. It always exists near the poles but weakens in summers and strengthens in winter, right? The term vortex refers to counterclockwise flow of air that helps keep the cold air near the poles, right? Also, this led to frigid Arctic staying mostly locked in the Arctic rather than wobbling around and spilling extremely cold air into places like the US, right? The stable, profoundly cold air allowed lofty clouds to form high up in the atmosphere where ozone lives in the stratosphere, and these are called the polar stratospheric clouds, right? These clouds create an ideal environment for the human-made chemical chlorofluorocarbons to react with sunlight and then make chlorine, the chemical that ultimately destroys ozone, right? Moreover, this robust polar vortex prevented ozone-rich air from other regions from washing into the Arctic, which kept ozone levels depleted, right? Reasons for such unusually strong polar vortices and why it lasted so long this year is yet to be known. So those kind of things we do not actually have proper explanations to as to why would such a thing happen and why is it that it turned out to be like this. But yes, it has happened, and that is what is like what we know of it, right? So just repeating polar vortex again for you guys. So what happens like जब हम अपने like Arctic and Antarctic की बात करते हैं, that is your polar regions, they have a very high pressure there, right? So वहाँ पर बहुत ज़्यादा high pressure generate होता है. Because of the huge amounts of high pressure that are created over there, what happens, or what do we notice, that these areas generally have what? These areas generally have a polar vortex, that is a polar cyclone that generates in these areas, right? Now what will happen as a result of the polar cyclone that has been generated in all these regions? We notice that as a result of the same, we will be noticing that जैसे जैसे यहाँ पर जो साइक्लोन है ये डेवलप होगा या स्ट्रॉन्ग होगा, यहाँ पर और ज़्यादा पोलर स्ट्रेटोस्फेरिक क्लाउड्स बनेंगे. Now, as and when these polar stratospheric clouds are going to be formed, they will act as your, surface areas for your, like all of your chlorofluorocarbons to settle down, and that is exactly how this entire cycle or chain of events begins then, right? So that is what is going to happen in all these areas here, right? Now, going on further, coming on to the next aspect here, like when we speak of the rest of the things in this aspect here. So when we talk about the Arctic ozone hole and how it's going to be forming and all those things, so this is something that has been going on for quite some time, and with respect to or in response to the various conservation efforts that have been launched by the countries globally, all across the globe, we've seen so many different conservation efforts have been coming up of late, and they are in place as well. So what we have noted here is that the phase out schedules of chlorofluorocarbons, hydrochlorofluorocarbons, they have ultimately shown us the way as to how the elimination has proven to give a positive feedback, and how the quantum of pollution has significantly come down here, right? So that is with respect to this, right? I hope this is clear to everyone here. Now, going on further, coming on to the next important aspect, that is the third mass bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef recorded, right? Now, what do we understand by the third mass bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef? So, basically, coral bleaching is what we are referring to over here. So, Australia's Great Barrier Reef has suffered its most widespread coral bleaching on record, right? The record sea temperatures caused the third mass bleaching of the 2,300-kilometer reef system in just 5 years, right? For the first time, severe bleaching has struck all three regions of the Great Barrier Reef, the northern, central, and now large parts of the southern sectors, and the damage came as February brought the highest monthly sea temperatures on the Great Barrier Reef since Australia began keeping records in 1900, right? Now, as we have, as we all would already know as well, so जो आपके coral reefs होते हैं, they are very, very sensitive, right? They are very sensitive to changes in temperatures and all those things. So that is one important aspect related to it, right? Now, when we speak about all these coral reefs here, so what do we notice, or what have we noticed over here is that whenever we are talking about the changes in, say, for instance, temperature or anything like that for that matter, so we have seen that the coral reefs are one of the most sensitive areas to all such things, right? So coral reefs जो हैं आपके, they are like highly sensitive to all these things, right? And even if it's a small change in salinity or pH or temperature, whatever the case may be, the coral reefs will definitely show the impact, right? Coral reefs uska impact definitely दिखाएंगे, right? So that is what we talk about the third mass bleaching of the Great Barrier Reef, which has been so recorded here, right? So that is about it. Now, going on further, since we all are aware of the fact that the coral reefs are very, very sensitive, so they need a 27 degree Celsius ka ambient temperature, 33 parts per thousand ki salinity. So when we know that they are so specific about such, such things here, so any deviation or changes from the same will surely reflect, right? So that is exactly what has happened over here, because there was a huge change in temperature, right? Because temperature एकदम से increase decrease fluctuations हो रहे हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा increase हो रहा है. So what will we be seeing, or what will we be noticing, that a lot of corals will not be able to survive, and it is definitely going to show with respect to coral bleaching and coral deaths here, right? Now, going on further, coming to the next aspect that talks about anthurium flowers, which act as indoor air pollutants, right? So, let me show you like the image of your anthurium flower. Ek second. You must have seen it previously as well, right? So this is what anthurium looks like, right? So this flower here is your anthurium flower, right? So this is what anthurium looks like. Now anthurium flowers act in the capacity of, or they act as your indoor air purifiers, right? So anthurium flowers act as your indoor air purifiers, right? They are like very like adept at purifying the indoor air. So the NIF, that is National Innovation Foundation of India, has recently boosted new varieties of anthurium, a flower with high market value. These flowers will help to purify the air and are cultivated by a lady innovator from Kerala, right? They remove harmful airborne chemicals like formaldehydes, ammonia, toluene, xylene, and other allergens from the air. Right, talking about how they are available, so it is basically a vast group of beautiful blooming plants available in a wide range of colors. So you must have seen different varieties of your anthurium flowers are formed, or rather they are found, right? So that is about it. Now, also note that due to its importance of removing toxic substances from the air, right? So, since it can remove so many toxic substances from the air, it is of a very important significance over here. That like since it is going to be helping in all these ways, or since it's going to be so very useful over here, we will notice that whenever we speak about, or whenever we talk about the such flowers or the like the anthurium here, so due to its importance of such things, NASA has also placed it in the list of air purifier plants, right? So it has placed it in the air purifier plants, right? So that is how the your this thing here works, right? So that is about it. Now talking about the National Innovation Fund. So speaking about the National Innovation Fund, or foundation in India, what exactly is going to happen over here? So when we speak of it, it is it is India's national initiatives to strengthen the grassroots technology innovations and outstanding traditional knowledge, right? So that is about it. Mission क्या है इसमें हमारा? What is the mission that people have over here? So as far as the mission goes, what is it going to do? What is it going to cause, or what all things are going to be a result of the same, right? So mission is to help India become a creative and knowledgeable or knowledge-based society out here, right? So that is about it. Right now, NIF supports grassroots innovations, or rather, it was set up with the support of Honeybees network, right? So that is about it, right? Now, when we speak about NIF supports grassroots innovation, so what do we know by that? So yes, indeed, NIF supports your grassroots innovations and local communities. How in any technological field without any help from the formal sector, right? So that is about it, right? So all these things are there, and this is how it basically follows suit from here, right? So that is with respect to the anthurium and NIF over here, right? Is this clear to everybody now? Has everybody understood or followed this much? Is this clear? Have you guys understood the same? All right. So on that note, guys, I will, end the discussion here for today, right? I will continue with the discussion tomorrow, wherein I will be talking about, or wherein I will be taking up the aspects related to different things, wherein I will be talking about the various current affairs from the month of what? From the month of May now, right? So we've covered up till April, so we are left with May, June, and July. We will be able to complete the current affairs from the month of May tomorrow itself. It's not very lengthy. June might take a day and a half, and so will July. July definitely will, because the number of slides for July are very high. So that is definitely going to increase, right? So that is about it. Right, so on that note, I will end the discussion here for today, guys. So in case you still have any doubts, please feel free to reach out to me. Right, अगर कोई issue है, something is not clear, then you let me know. Right. So on that note, guys, I will be ending the discussion here for today then. Right. So that was all for the discussion here. I hope you guys have understood. So with that, we'll end the discussion of the session here for today, guys. Thank you so much for attending the session. I hope you guys have understood everything clearly. In case you still have doubts, you feel free to reach out to me, right? So make sure you guys reach out to me. So guys, study well, revise well, and take care. And I hope you guys have a great day ahead. All right, enjoy yourselves. Good day, guys. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.